Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. I'm your host Leo, and this week we are talking an anime. And we're not talking just any anime, we're talking a light, fluffy, romantic anime. Specifically, we're talking Love After World Domination. Now, Love After World Domination is a relatively... it's quite recent, having been released only in 2022. And it is looking like it's not going to be getting a second season. And its manga has officially... well, it was canceled, but they had enough time to actually try and wrap up the story. So, swings and roundabouts, I guess. But, yeah. I wanted to talk about an anime that, one, I hadn't finished yet. I had started it, but I hadn't finished it. So I wanted an opportunity to watch one of the many anime I have just kind of chilling in my watch list, which is way too many, just so you know. I have too many just sitting there waiting. I also wanted something that wasn't terribly long and doesn't have a whole lot of expectation set up into it. If I tried covering something like Dragon Ball, one, that's way too many episodes. Just to do one season would be 5 parts or something like that. I would not be able to handle doing something the size and scale of fucking Dragon Ball. So, smaller. And what better than my personal favorite genre of anime, romantic comedy. When it was originally airing, I was trying to watch it side by side with another romantic comedy, Shikimori's Not Just a Cutie. And it was going fine for the first 4 to 5 episodes, but I have trouble with weekly releases of TV shows and whatnot. I tend to fall off very fast. I tried doing it with Walking Dead, I've tried doing it with many shows, and I always tend to fall off very fast. But, yeah. Plus, I wasn't really feeling the plot of Shikimori. It's fine. It's another cutesy, romantic comedy thing. But it's one of those ones where, there's, a very specific trope in it. In that one, it's that he's extremely accident-prone. Ludicrously accident-prone. And that trope tends to get a little bit annoying. The Love After World Domination also has some annoying things about it. And overall, I would say that the biggest issues with Love After World Domination is, even though it's quite fun, cute, and overall I would say it's good, it's forgettable. And part of that is because just as it's building a nice feeling, it kind of crushes that feeling with a mixture of things. So, yeah. Anywho. Yeah, so I fell off, and then it took me forever. I tried to pick it up again, but fell off again. I have a lot of trouble watching anime, hence why my watch list is ludicrously long. But I decided to take this opportunity. Hey, we just did 3 weeks straight of Dune, followed by live action Avatar, so I had a bit of a gap, because in my schedule, I'll pull up my calendar, which is it's a physical calendar. So on my schedule, I had listed out all the way through to the beginning of April, except I had 2 blank spaces. After Avatar live action season 1, I had 2 blank spaces, and I was going to do Spider-Man Miles Morales, because I had done Spider-Man and I was trying to eke out a way to work things out. It wasn't working out fine, because that ended up being way far out of the way from the whole reason I was going to do it, and then I ended up scrapping a lot of things, so that got scratched out. So I left that blank trying to figure something out, because I had this blank spot between Avatar and what was supposed to be, on the 1st of April, Mickey 17. But Mickey 17 got delayed, so now that's an issue in and of itself, but I digress. So I decided to replace Spider-Man Miles Morales with just a fluffy anime, because I hadn't really done like an anime proper. I did Dragon Ball Z Kakarot ages ago, but I hadn't done like an actual anime. So I decided, why not do one that I need to watch and kind of represents one of my favorite genres of anime. Because they're a lot more digestible, I think, is part of the reason why I like romantic comedy anime much more than most other anime. Because each season is like 12 episodes. That's all you have to worry about is 12 episodes. Can you digest that? Probably. But yeah, it's a thing. Like, if I go to my watch list, most of the shows within will be only like one season, 12 episodes. And they're usually cutesy, fluffy things, or they might have some action to them. Who knows? Sometimes not me, because sometimes I just see an image or like a small screenshot or a small clip from an anime, and I'll add it to the list because, hey, I need to. There is some exceptions to the rule, of course. As I said, Dragon Ball is technically an exception to the rule. I'm always constantly trying to watch Dragon Ball, but it doesn't really work out. Trigun is also a pretty good example, though that's an exception to the exception, technically, because that's also, in and of itself, the first original series season is one season, and it's pretty short. So, yeah, though there is a movie. But now there is also Trigun Stampede, which I need to take a look at some point. So we'll see. But, yeah. So, fluffy anime. So, what other issues does this anime have? Not a whole lot. I mean, its use of, like, as termed in anime and whatnot, fan service can be a little bit egregious at times. It's not, for most of the time, it's something that's technically a background detail. It's technically there, but it's something that you can ignore. Except for in a few specific instances, in a few very specific episodes, where they decide to put it on the forefront and be like, yes, no, here you go. These are the full-on fan service, and in one very specific instance, extremely weird fan service examples. So let's start kind of breaking it down. So why does it kind of feel a little bit forgettable? So as I said, there's one major annoying thing, and that would be that since this is an anime that is supposed to be kind of like Power Rangers / like a magical girl thing. The reason I say it's like / a magical girl thing is because it's two opposing organizations. Now, yes, in, say, your Power Rangers, there is the evil group, and there's like the minions and whatnot. So it's mostly like that, but these are like two almost semi-legitimate organizations. Both of them are pretty much like a place you can go get hired and get a job. So it which seems to be some of the magical girl things, and I guess some of the Sentai things. I don't know. The line between Sentai and magical girl is very fine, because I do understand that technically the only difference is the target audience of those shows. So, yeah. It's silly. But anywho, we follow Fudo, who is the leader of the Sentai team Gelato 5. He is specifically Red Gelato, the flavor of strawberry. And they are going up against the evil organization Gecko, and one of their leaders, Reaper Princess. So Reaper Princess is kind of considered to be the rival, and in the first episode, it opens up with them just having a cutesy little picnic, and him eating cookies, and it's kind of where we're introduced to the first kind of annoying element. It's cute at first, but then it gets annoying as time goes on, and that's Fudo's asides. whenever he reacts to Decimy, that's her name, Decimy's like reactions, like his reactions to her reactions, it will always cut to his aside, mostly just calling her cute or adorable or something along those lines. And it tends to get a little bit annoying as this series goes on. But they're having a cutesy little date, while the rest of Gelato 5 are, fighting a battle in the background. Then we are kind of shown what you expect to be a long-running joke throughout the series, but it actually surprisingly doesn't come up as much as you would think. Which is, as they are having their cutesy picnic, and they're getting closer and whatnot, and they're having their conversation, one of Red's, or one of Fudo's teammates comes and interrupts them, so they have to quickly switch over and fight. So that's kind of what you expect to be the trope that would run a lot throughout the show, and it comes up every so often, but it's surprisingly not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. But yes, so after that, it cuts to the title sequence. It shows us a little bit more of like how they actually got into their relationship. And it is that a week before they have their little date thing, it shows how he was mulling over an issue. Now, it makes it seem... the show has a bit of a rough time actually showing the fact that he's actually had a crush on her for a long time. It doesn't really show that, at least not in the first episode. But he goes, and he's mulling over the issue, and the advice he's given by the leader, Professor Gelato, after they have a fight with Reaper Princess, is that if he has a crush on a girl, he should go for it, because it's kind of a miracle that he has romantic feelings at all. Because everyone on his team just sees him as a meathead, because that is kind of his like one personality note, is that he is really into bodybuilding and exercise. So he has incredible strength and whatnot. Part of why he was chosen for the team and how he worked his way up to being a leader. So his mentor, Professor Gelato, tells him, go for it. Suspecting that, she's probably like a nurse or a teacher or something. But no, it's one of their greatest enemies, Reaper Princess. So he goes and confesses to her. Well, he calls her out to an abandoned like warehouse thing, and she's expecting a fight, and he confesses to her, asks her to go out with him, and she feels like he's making fun of her. Because in her organization of Gecko, they believe her to be this demonic entity of sorts. So they see her as... They've been spreading rumors that she eats bear meat and she can kill a man with a glance kind of thing. That she has no interest in anything like that. Like anything romantic or anything like that. But in truth, she absolutely does have interest in that kind of thing. But she's become desensitized to the idea that no one would love her. So this, of course, being confessed to by what's supposed to be her greatest enemy, has come as a bit of a shock. But to each of these points that she brings up, he counters with her actual favorite food and what she likes to do and her interests. And she's shocked and scared by this, which is fair, but it just turns out that he somehow discovered her real identity and found her social media. And just had been messaging her through social media without her knowing that she was talking to Gelato Red. And his username, I think, is Protein Man or something like that. But she eventually relents and agrees, and thus they're able to have their little relationship. Though they have to keep it secret because it would become a massive scandal, if it came out. Because in this, his and I believe all of Gelato 5's real identities are known, well known. There is no hiding like Fudo versus Gelato Red. But yeah, so they're interrupted once again and have to fight, and they go their separate ways. And that is the first episode, titled I Love You. Yeah, so I mean, overall, the first episode is a pretty good start. It gets much better once it actually starts getting into the meat of the past. But the whole idea is that they're both relatively inexperienced in what is love. So they're just trying to figure it out together and going extremely slow along the way. As a lot of cutesy things do. But hey, at least it's not one of those anime where you have to wait until the very end of the season, that might be the only season you ever get, for any kind of progress to happen. Anyway, the second episode is called The Truth About Dating, where the episode actually opens with us getting a proper explanation about when he fell in love with her. And it was upon their first meeting 6 months ago. Which is, I guess, supposed to be when Reaper Princess made her, like, debut in Team Gecko. And we're shown that as they've been dating, they have to, of course, keep up the appearance that they are fighting. So they've developed this, like, winking signaling thing to let each other know what their moves are going to be, so that they can, like, dodge and whatnot, to provide a convincing battle for the public, but not actually hurt each other. Then they make an excuse to take it elsewhere so that they can just hide and hang out. But she's having a bit of an issue with the way that they've been having their dates. You know, while she's overall fine with it, she wants something a little bit more real, and without having to, you know, have their personas get in the way. So Fudo goes and sets out on planning a date. And they go on this date, and he feels that it's a roaring success, because he figures that she almost certainly likes the things that he likes, because they're dating. So he takes her out to the gym to exercise, then, well, primarily, then goes on a long run with her, and then, as their after-exercise meal, provides her a protein bar. And she kind of goes and walks away, saying that she's going to go to the bathroom. Just at that point, he gets a call from, I'm just going to use the gelato colors for his teammates, because I can't remember any of their actual names. So he gets a call from Gelato Yellow, and she says, hey, that advice I gave you, garbage. Don't do that, because she's most likely expecting this, this, and this, so you almost certainly fucked it. Well, of course, doesn't know that he's on a date, but he goes and assumes that he almost certainly fucked it. So he goes on a panic, trying to find Desumi, and he ends up running into her, or she ends up running into him, and it turns out that she went to go get drinks because, you know, eating the protein bars can kind of get cakey in your mouth, so she wanted something to help wash it down. And that's when he realized that, oh, you know, yeah, we both don't really know what we're doing, and also she does at least share some of the same interests, because she talks about how the fact that she eats those protein bars all the time, too. But overall, date success, but they both get called off to fight as an interruption, so they have to go and meet each other on the battlefield. Then the after episode bit is just Desumi's cat, showing it kind of from Desumi's perspective, the confession, at least the when she returned home confession, like how she was before the confession and then immediately after, to show a bit of the dichotomy there. Then we go to episode 3, at last, the amusement park. And this is where we start getting the split story episodes, where the story isn't going to be one solid tale throughout, from beginning to end. It will be, primarily two. So you'll have the A story and then the B story for the episode. In this case, the A story for the episode is they're hanging around bored. They don't have much to do. But they get news that Gecko has a new weapon. So they must send someone to infiltrate Gecko's base and, destroy the weapon. And Fudo's been a bit depressed because, they haven't really met each other in about 2 weeks. Because things have been down for a long time, so they haven't been really able to meet for dates or anything like that. So he's a bit depressed. So he immediately volunteers when asked to go infiltrate the base, or when it's said that someone needs to go infiltrate the base. He immediately volunteers and sets off. And they're seeing it as a heroic sacrifice when it's not really. But after the intro, we see that, yes, Decimi is also sad because they haven't been able to hang out. And her horoscope was terrible. So she decides, following her horoscope, to go buy a new bag, because it said that a new bag might be able to help reverse your bad romantic luck. And she runs into the bear commander, who so you're not told this until later on in the series, the actual organizational structure of Gecko. But you have the main leader. Then under the leader you have the monsters, which is people who were upgraded, they worked their way up through the ranks and whatnot, became super powerful, and in order to gain extra power were fused with an animal in order to be even stronger. So that's the monsters, and the bear is one of those monsters. Then you have the princesses, which Decimi is one of. And then under the princesses you have the grunts, essentially. But yeah, so he is the one rocking the new weapon, which is just pretty much an upgrade to his normal cannons, because he's like a bear who walks on two legs with two big fuck-off cannons on his back. And he sees her bag and just assumes that it's a front, it's a disguise that she's using to hold deadly weapons, because that's the main joke with her around the base is, even though she's just upfront about liking cutesy things, people just assume that when she's talking about these things, that she has extreme evil intent behind them. But anywho, as she's walking back to her dressing room, she runs across Fudo breaking into the base. So she quickly absconds him into her room, and they play Uno for a bit. He keeps losing, and at that moment she gets a call and has to hide him real quick. Then, while trying to, shuffle him out so that he can, because it's getting a bit too close for comfort for him getting caught. Then the bear commander comes in, and she has to hide him in the locker, but accidentally hides with him. And because she gets it super embarrassed about the fact that he's in her locker, she hits him, knocking him out, knocking over the bear commander, and thus destroying the weapon. So it was a mission success scenario. And so he goes... They hang out outside of the now kind of smoldering Gecko base, and he gives her his phone number because, well, they haven't really been able to talk. So by him giving her his phone number, they'll be able to talk more. But when she gives it a call, his mom picks up, and it's the landline. She tells him, "Hey, you should probably get a cell phone." And he's like, "Yeah, you're right." And so he does. So that's kind of the other part of his musclehead personality, is that he's actually kind of really tech illiterate. He's bad with technology. It doesn't come up a whole lot, save for like just his cell phone in this episode, and I think maybe a little bit further. But that's kind of the main issue, is that he's a bit tech illiterate, so that's why he didn't get a cell phone. But continuing on, we go into now the B plot of the amusement park. It follows on it follows on from the other half of the episode, but it's pretty much like now a completely different situation. So while Gecko is repairing the damage done to their own base, they decide to have a meeting because they need to keep doing their work. And what is their work? Their work is collecting negative energy. So the reason that they attack superpopulated places and whatnot is that they're collecting negative energy to spawn forth the ultimate phantom, which is supposed to be Gecko's strongest monster. So they need suggestions. So each princess suggests a place, but the commander's not feeling it. Then Reaper Princess, or Decimy, keeps suggesting very specific locations. So she suggests a scenic overlook, and they said no to like obscure. Then she suggests a aquarium. He's like, no, too compact. And then she suggests an amusement park. And while at first the commander's like, no, stop suggesting date locations, the bear guy comes in and is like, oh no, that's actually a pretty good idea because there's going to be a lot of people there. And so they go, okay, good, let's do that. She drops the information to Fudo, who's still trying to get used to his phone. Yellow starts getting suspicious about the fact that he almost certainly is dating someone. So they decide to sneak off to the amusement park as well. Yellow and Pink decide to sneak off and observe. And all they're really able to see is that, oh, he's probably just patrolling. But Gecko, while lurking off in the bushes, notices that, oh, their plan might not work out because, well, Red's there and so's Pink and Yellow, so they need to maybe retreat. But Decimy, not wanting to give up this opportunity, rushes off to, quote-unquote, confront Red. And whilst they're beginning to confront, they're like, oh, or Yellow and Pink are like, oh, so, he was just patrolling, and it's a good thing because Gecko's now here. So they come out, transform, and try to assist. Red and Reaper Princess then take the opportunity to sneak away and have their date. They go through a bunch of different rides and have fun, but they feel that maybe they, took a bit too much of a risk. So they call it a day there, and Pink notices a picture of them on the roller coaster and realizes, oh, that's a bit odd. Why is... Because that's definitely him, because, again, he doesn't hide his identity or anything. So it's a bit questionable. Which leads us directly into the next episode. Could you please tell me why? This shows us a little bit more of their lives outside of their respective jobs. They are both high school students, as it turns out. Although Decimy's high school has a sailor uniform for some reason. Like, I guess it's kind of leaning into the whole like magical girl / Sentai feel, because a lot of magical girl animes tend to have sailor uniforms, not only like as their battle uniform, but like as their school uniform. It's weird. But she comes across Pink and Fudo having a bit of a chat, and At this, she gets extremely jealous and upset. So, and it turns out that she is trying to ask him about the picture from the amusement park. But he misunderstands the situation and figures that it's because she is a new recruit. Pink has only been there for about 6 months, and he's like, yeah, you're about to hit a wall, so you're going to want this exercise book and this thing of protein, and it should help you along the way. And, that's what he thinks the meeting is about, but because he keeps interrupting her, assuming what she's going to ask, she's not able to get a word in edgewise, and is just like, yeah, no, it's almost certain that he doesn't have a girlfriend, so it's fine. Because she does have a crush on him, but in the fight, because they're called off to a fight because part of it is Decime's upset, so she wants to, destroy some stuff. So when he tries to do their, signaling thing, she completely ignores it. Then she tries out, a death tornado attack on him, and she gets a bit queasy, and he warns her, hey, you shouldn't try to do moves that you haven't practiced thoroughly. And she confronts him about the diner, or the cafe date that he was on, and he's like, oh, no, that was just, that was nothing. That was me just giving her, exercise tips, and she says, don't you think I know that? Because she never once suspected that he would actually cheat on her, because, one, he has too strong a sense of justice. What she's mostly upset about is how she's reacting, because she got extremely jealous. And she saw, the darkness welling up in her, hence, the, I guess, temper tantrum, you could say. But she's worried that she's not a good match for him because of the fact that she is supposed to be evil. And he, of course, reassures her and whatnot. But while they're hanging out, having a bit of a chat, it shows that Pink was kind of there the entire time. And she knows everything. Which cuts us to the second half of the episode, which is what will Pink do, essentially. Where he's they're kind of hovering around each other, wondering whether or not Pink is going to rat them out. They have a bit of a secret meeting, or Fudo and Desumi have a bit of a secret meeting, trying to discuss their situation, and Desumi notices Pink's presence, and sends Fudo off to get a very specific, coffee drink. And so she has a conversation with Pink. They have a fight. Pink loses badly. And Pink explains that, overall, the biggest issue she has is that she is also in love with Fudo. But the issue she has is that the person that he fell in love with just so happens to also be the person that she liked, because she, or at least respected, because she was saved by Desumi when she was younger, and some guys were trying to harass her, and she was told that she needed to get stronger, and that's part of the reason why she got stronger and joined Gelato 5, and she was, of course, shocked to find out that the person that she looked up to for saving her just so happens to be the Reaper Princess. But they come to a nice understanding, and she supports their relationship. Though she does say to Reaper Princess, hey, be careful, because if you don't stay on your toes, I'll steal him away. Kind of thing. But, overall, this is where the show's starting to actually kind of get into its groove a bit. As we go on to episode 5, Just the Way You Are. Now, this one's another kind of split into two, though it has most of the A plot takes up the episode, while then the B plot just kind of hovers around a bit. So the A plot is we're getting introduced to more of the princesses in Gecko. So there's Beast Princess and Steel Princess are the two. The Beast Princess and Steel Princess are the two kind of main other princesses that we were kind of introduced to and see more of throughout the series. They basically become Destiny's kind of main friends, while Beast Princess kind of sees it more as a rivalry. But yeah. So they're talking. Destiny finds out that, or Destiny overhears that Steel Princess has a bit of an interest in love. And so kind of keeps pushing that point. But Steel Princess feels like she can't be love. That she has a bit of a too rough personality that no one would be able to fall in love with her. So Destiny decides to take her under wing, and Beast Princess joins in order to try and see what she might, like what skills she might have that someone might be able to fall in love with. So they do Pilates, they try to cook, they look up, or they try to do like makeup and whatnot, and more exercises, but it's not really working. So she goes to Fudo to ask, for advice. And specifically she asks, hey, like, do you care whether or not I could, cook or anything? He's like, no, that doesn't matter. I love you for who you are. Which brings her to the realization that, oh, right, I saw too much of myself in her, so I've been trying to push her too hard, too fast. And also I've been trying to, completely change her. So her and Beast Princess go to try and talk to Steel Princess, who's been kind of holed up in her room. But Destiny goes up to her and says, I was wrong, and I'm sorry for that. You don't need to change for anyone. You need to find someone who can love you for who you are. And at this, she's like, oh yeah, hopefully they'll be able to find something to love about me. And it turns out that she's in love with the bear guy. And the second half of the episode, again, kind of continues on, but not fully, as the bear guy goes to her, Steel Princess's, like, monster commander person, and asks them to let him borrow Steel Princess. Basically so that they can do what Fudo and Decimi do. Hang out, essentially, while working. But yeah, so while they're attacking, Fudo and Decimi sneak off, and one of the Gelato members, I can't remember which one, tries to interrupt them, but Pink, waves them away, saying, oh, they're not over here. But while they're hanging out, they're trying to eat. Like, she made him a bento and whatnot, and she wants to feed him. And while he's super excited to do it and whatnot, all of a sudden he gets a stomach ache, like a massive cramp in his stomach, and he doesn't know what it is, but he's willing to fight through the pain to try to, be fed by her. But he ends up passing out, and it's because he had appendicitis. So they had to take out his appendix. And in this scene, we are actually shown that, like, Gecko sent him flowers. Like, the commander sent him flowers saying, hey, get well soon. If you're going to be killed, it should be by us. And I think that's a very sweet thing that, they send each other flowers to make sure that they get well. But yeah, so while he's resting, Yellow tries to feed him an apple. And at first he's about to accept, but then says nope. And refuses to eat it. So Pink comes in with the save and eats the apple off the fork for him. Then, while he's kind of dreaming, he thinks that Decimi might be the one trying to feed him, but it turns out to just be his mom. After his mom leaves, Decimi does come in and feeds him an apple. And he's happy. Then the mom comes back to let him know that his dad's going to pick him up tomorrow, and notices Decimi, and kidnaps Decimi to join her volleyball team. After the volleyball match, they have a bit of a bonding moment where it's like the mom knows that they're dating and whatnot and apologizes for interrupting. But yeah, it's a cute little thing. Then we move on to episode 6, As Long as We're at the Beach. So it's the beach episode, but as with the amusement park episode, we don't get to the beach for a long time. Like, there's many times where you'll be watching an episode and you'll be like, what episode am I on? Because each episode feels kind of like two separate things. So, the first half is Desame's been promoted. She has been outstanding at her work. So she is going to be upgraded from a princess to a monster. And they want to fuse her with a gorilla. But she doesn't want to. But she feels that she has to. So when she is talking to Fudo, he says, hey, hold on, I'll be there in like a minute. And he goes there and talks to her. Because she's been feeling all of this pressure from outside, because obviously everyone at her work is expecting her to do it. Her family is expecting her to do it. Because her family... So her mom and dad were, I guess, gecko grunts who, found each other, fell in love, and got very lucky with the fact that their daughter made it up to, like, princess rank. So they're very proud of their daughter and whatnot, and the fact that she was going to get promoted to monster made them absolutely ecstatic. And her sister's talking about how she wants to be able to work for her bigger sister and whatnot. And it's a whole thing. But Fudo tells her that it doesn't matter what he thinks she should do. It's a matter of what she wants to do. And if she doesn't want to do it, she shouldn't. So she decides to not. And while at first everyone's, shocked, the commander's like, it's exactly what I would expect from you. Good job. Like, that's bad. Like, you don't even need the extra power. You can take on anyone you want. And you can do it with your fleshy human hands. You don't need gorilla meaty fists or anything like that. So, all's well that ends well. On to the actual episode bit for the thing. Of the actual beach episode part. Now, as I kind of said earlier, this is where the fan service is a little bit much. They still don't focus on it too much, but it's a beach episode. What do you expect? So the pretense for going to the beach is that Gelato 5 is actually testing out a new weapon. So Gelato 5 has, of course, like a Power Rangers team or your Voltron, a mech that they're supposed to be able to use. But it's still in development. So they're testing out a very specific part of the mech, which is the Gelato submarine. The Gelato submarine is a relatively insubstantial part of the mech. It's just the calf of the mech. Because the mech consists of 12 parts. For some reason. But, yeah, so, like, the Gelato team isn't taking it super seriously. And, yeah. And technically neither is the Gecko team. Because they're also looking at it as a chance to relax. Well, some of them are. But the main kind of thing is that Beast Princess is watching as Desame and Fudo hang out, not realizing that they're dating and they're just having fun on the beach. She's assuming that she's torturing him and like bashed his head in and whatnot. And then at the very end, because the professor messes up with the fireworks, he accidentally destroys the submarine, and Beast Princess assumes that Desame did it. But yeah, so like, it's a fun thing. But Desame now is pretty much known amongst the team fully, because she just hung out with them as they had like a barbecue, and was able to slip by under their radar. Well, partially, because this part of the episode does lead immediately into the next episode. Desame Magahara is the monster I made. Now, in this episode, episode 7, it is shown that Gelato Green is a bit weird around Decime. At the mention of her name, he kind of goes into a bit of a catatonic shock. So he explains to Fudo his past. He knew Decime when she was like a young kid. Now Gelato Green is one of the older members, along with the older members are Gelato Green and Gelato Yellow. They are like full-blown adults. Gelato Yellow drinks alcohol. Gelato Green, I don't think he does, but yeah, he's one of the older members. And Gelato Green and Yellow are they I think they like each other, but there's a ban on workplace relationships. There's actually a ban on workplace relationships at both companies, but there's nothing to say about intercompany relationships technically. The Steel Princess and the Bear Guy, they just decided to date regardless of that, and most people just ignore it and even accept it. But yeah, so he explains that when he was younger, he was in a karate class, and Decime showed up. And the first thing she said is that her parents made her join because everything that she would play with, she would break. And it's shown why. Because she is extremely strong. In fact, she almost knocks Gelato Green out with one punch. But he's able to just withstand it. So the next day, when he goes in to, continue working at the karate class, it turns out that the karate class is being shuttered because Decime beat up the teacher. And the teacher, out of shame, decided to close the dojo. He goes in to find her extremely depressed because everywhere she would go, she would accidentally, do something, and a place she would grow fond of would immediately be gone. So he decides to help train her because he felt that was the right thing to do. But she is now almost killing him on a daily basis. He has to constantly train to just be able to survive her onslaught. And she sees it as he is kind of going easy on her. This goes on for years, and she ends up building a massive reputation where thugs would come out of the woodworks to challenge her, and she would absolutely destroy them. So, before he moved to Tokyo, he decided that he had to try and, close that book, finish off the chapter in his story. And so he goes to challenge her one last time. And, well, he loses. So he's had nightmares about her and repressed the memory of her until he saw her at the barbecue on the beach. And she didn't seem to recognize him, so he was able to stay a bit calm about it until he learned that Fudo and her were dating. And so he decides to steal his resolve because he's been looking for recruits. So he tells Fudo that he needs to break up with her because workplace relationships are forbidden. And so he wants to recruit her to the team. Fudo agrees to let them meet. And of course, Green is having a lot of trouble. He's shaking, but she's pretty calm. She wants to do training for old time's sake, but Green's like, no, that's not necessary. And he gets confused seeing how Fudo and Decime interact because, well, Decime's now being super cutesy and whatnot. He remembers her as someone who got bored with the world and became closed in around herself kind of thing. And now to see her being super cutesy and whatnot, he feels that she's probably gotten weak. So he agrees. Fine, we'll train one more time, but there will be a bit of a side thing going on. If I win, you will break up with Fudo, and you will join the team. If you win, I will not pester you anymore about joining the team. And she asks, why would I have to break up with Fudo? And he's like, oh, well, there's there's no workplace relationship, so you would have to break up with him. To which then she gets super pumped up and, completely destroys him. Like, at first he was going to do the fight, like, in his normal thing, but he had to suit up when he saw her murderous intent. And I guess the suiting up tends to make them slightly stronger? Maybe? It's not fully explained. But, yeah, and he's like, no, you're fine. But Fudo and Desumi go off. They're having a bit of a conversation about what just happened. And, someone has caught them hanging out and has taken a picture. Once again, this episode does lead in to the next, which is everybody has a secret or two. Now, this episode opens with Fudo coming into a team meeting, or kind of a team meeting. Basically, the mail arrived, and so he comes in and gets a letter that's been shipped to him, which so happens to be kind of a ransom note. It's one of those things where, like, the individual letters have been cut out of, like, a magazine or something and put over the photo of him and Desumi. So he's in a bit of a panic. But we cut off to show what Desumi's doing at her school. She's eating lunch, and it turns out that all of the princesses are integrated within this school somehow. Beast Princess is in the school, and she's like a disciplinary committee member. Steel Princess so happens to be the class president. And then there's this one girl who turns out to be, I believe, Heat Princess. She is kind of bullying Desumi. She steals Desumi's rice ball and whatnot, and asks Desumi what she thinks that she wants. Basically, asking Desumi what her motive for bullying Desumi is. And she's like, if you don't know, I won't tell you. And that's where Desumi says, well, everybody has a secret or two. So is willing to let her be weirdly mysterious. Turns out she's the one that's been blackmailing Fudo, or is trying to blackmail Fudo. So she tries to get Fudo to, quote unquote, become her slave. Basically, she tries to get further blackmail evidence in order to, get him. Essentially, her actual main motive is to get Fudo to break up with Desumi. That's her main motive. But when that fails, she tries to do what would be seen as getting additional blackmail evidence, but it's actually something that is trying to get evidence to get Desumi to break up with him. So she tries to record him saying that he loves her. He says no. Then tries to get him to allow himself to have a photo taken of him kissing her hand. And he just kind of... they both hesitate. And then she panics and freaks out and leaves. Tells him to come back tomorrow. When he comes to Desumi with the issue, she comes to the conclusion that it's likely that she's in love with him. Like, she's trying to blackmail him to, start an actual relationship. So when he goes to her next, he apologizes, says, sorry, I can't reciprocate. Sorry, I can't reciprocate your feelings. And whatnot. And she's like, no, I don't like you. I like her. And it's kind of explained. Yeah, it's explained why she fell in love with Desumi. So she fell in love with Desumi because she has a very flashy gal style. So in case you don't know, in Japan, especially nowadays, there's a very popular genre of gal, or it's like gyaru, which just means gal, which is a very flashy Western-esque fashion style. That's all. It's primarily focused towards fashion, but a lot of people see it as a very sexual thing. It's, yeah. But anywho, so because of her flashy style, no one really wants to approach her or talk to her, so she's just, kind of shut in on herself. But at some point, Decimi comes up and actually compliments her style and whatnot, and specifically her fingernails, stating that she tried to style her nails like that, but kept failing. So, yeah. So after that, she took an interest in her, and that's pretty much it for the interest. But at this, Fudo's like, hey, that's not bad. I mean, we could chat for hours about how we both love her. Like, he doesn't really feel threatened by her at all, but at the same time, feels like he's excited that he potentially has someone to talk to and share admiration of Decimi with. But she says, no, I can't really do that, though, hey, appreciate the offer. Though, be careful, because if you're not, I'll steal her. Pretty much the opposite of what Pink said to Decimi a few episodes ago. And she states as she's leaving that she shares something with Decimi that he could never. So she has a bit of a leg up on him, essentially. And it's shown that, yes, she is Heat Princess, but she actually does have a hidden identity. Like, so hidden that even the other princesses don't know her identity. And that's part 1 of the episode. Oh, and it has a callback to where Decimi says that, everyone has a secret or two, because Beast Princess is getting mad because Heat Princess doesn't really acknowledge them, doesn't wave their hand or talk or anything, so he gets mad about that, but Decimi replies with, oh, it's fine because everyone has a secret or two. Boom. Then we go to the second half of the episode that actually ends up leading into the next episode, because that's kind of how it's starting to work, where it starts to kind of chain into the next episode. But we join Fudo and Decimi as they are taking a love quiz, trying to see what their compatibility is. And they're at 98% compatibility. Decimi is ecstatic about this, but Fudo is devastated, wondering why he is not good enough for 100%. But they're then interrupted by Pink, who asks if Fudo will help her study, because she's falling behind in her studies, partially because of the job and whatnot, but also because she just doesn't really grasp studying, which I understand completely. But Decimi gets a little bit, sad, feeling a bit left out. So they offer to let Decimi in, because they ask, oh, so are you also bad at studying? And she's like, yes. So it offers that since they can't really go to the gelato base, where do they go? Well, they go to Decimi's house, essentially, where it is found out that she's actually really good at studying and absolutely aces all of her tests. So she didn't need it, she just felt left out. So they both offer to help Pink study. So they actually sneak into to her room in gecko disguises, which are these like black suits with skull masks, which are pretty fun design. But Pink's having trouble studying because Fudo is trying to explain math in terms of anatomy, so like musculature and whatnot, which is just confusing her. And when Decimi tries to explain it, she's explaining it in the vaguest, like, oh, the squiggly doodle there and the thingamabop there, completely just goes right over Pink's head. So she's like, nope, I can't do this. So she excuses herself and leaves. Thanks them for trying to help, but she already has where she wants to go to school set, and so she's just going to, buckle down and work hard to get to it. And at this, then there's the question of college. But Decimi's having a bit of an issue because her family is almost certainly expecting her to fully devote her time to Gecko when she finishes high school, while Fudo is free to kind of go to college if he wants. So she's a little bit sad about that. And that's where it kind of transitions into the next episode, where they think that Pink might have forgotten something as someone's at the door, but it turns out to be her dad. And it, of course, comes right after Fudo said that he would talk to her dad about going to college for her. But that goes into the next episode, My Big Sister Has Changed, where we pretty much pick up immediately where the last episode left off, where her sister and her dad had showed up to her apartment to visit, essentially. And so her dad is, mean mugging Fudo, who is currently masked up in disguise because, again, his face is very well known. And her dad is devastated at the state of her sister's... Sorry. Her dad is devastated at the state of her apartment, showing that because her apartment's super cutesy, doesn't have any gecko posters, the little award trophy figurine things that are so coveted throughout Gecko, she has a ton of them, and they're like tied up and like shoved away because she couldn't find anywhere to put them. But he's devastated at that, and Fudo keeps trying to basically talk for her because she has trouble talking, going against her family. The sister gets mad and hits him for trying to speak for her. Yeah, he basically asks, hey, could you please let her go to college? And her dad basically gets mad and says, hey, I'm going to show you, how I do it. And he takes a massive tumble. And Fudo's like, wait, I didn't hit him. And it's because her dad takes a lot of pride in being able to spectacularly fail. Because he is a grunt. And he sees that there's an artistry in how a grunt falls to a hero. So he takes a lot of pride in how he falls. And Fudo is able to see that pride and fully understands it. Because, of course, he's fought those grunts and he sees how well they flail when he hits them. So they're able to have a bit of a begrudging respect, and the dad is willing to at least bring the conversation up at a later date. But the sister is very mad, seeing Fudo as having weakened her sister. And we see that her sister was, or Desimee's sister was bullied constantly, being called, at least in the English dub, an emo girl. And be careful, because you could catch the emo. I don't know if that was like a translation issue or what, but it's very awkward in the English translation. But her sister, beat up those kids, stood up for her, told her that she needs to get stronger, and that's why Desimee's sister is looking to join Gecko. And that's why while they're hanging out, Desimee's sister wants to go to the Gecko base and sees how, the grunts absolutely respect and fear Desimee. But Desimee, is trying to look cute and whatnot. But the grunts just absolutely don't notice. Even though she's not even in uniform. The grunts just don't notice, and so gets mad. Then Desimee introduces her sister to some of the other princesses and the commander, who all praise her for being super strong, and Beast Princess says that she's a great rival, something to aspire to. But then Desimee pretty much says, why are we here? This place is so boring. Let's go somewhere fun. There's like frozen popcorn. Let's go try that. To which Desimee's sister fiercely apologizes for her sister being rude. They're like, no, that's pretty much par for the course. So they go get some frozen popcorn, but the sister just isn't enjoying the weird shopping and whatnot, and feels that her sister's gotten super weak. So she runs off and is sitting on some stairs when it kind of flashes back to the fact that after her extensive bullying, she pretty much became a recluse. She locked herself in her room, and her main interaction was her family telling her stories of Desimee like her accolades, how she became a princess, how she has been working her way through the ranks and whatnot. And, it's what helped her keep going. But now to see her being all cutesy and whatnot, it's breaking that image for her. Then she gets interrupted in her sulking by 3 douchebags trying to chat her up. But then, like, as she's about to potentially beat the shit out of them, they're like, oh, she seems like she's emo. Which then kind of sends her into a bit of a, PTSD shock and starts kind of regressing. At that moment, Decimy shows up and it's like, hey, let me prove to you that I'm not as weak as you think I am. I haven't gotten weaker. I've gotten stronger. And so she beats the shit out of the 3 guys and gives her sister a different lesson. So when they were younger, she told her sister the same thing that she told Pink when she had rescued Pink in the past. And that was, get stronger. You need to get stronger. Now, she says, you need to find someone to love. And, someone to love you. And her sister replies with, no, that's not what you used to say. But on her way home, she, resolves that, yes, her sister is indeed still strong and pretty much the same. But she's gonna fucking send Fudo, but at the time disguised as a grunt named Mudo, to hell when she gets into Gecko. But that is that. Then we move on to episode 10, Atop the Kokute Moon. Autumn has snuck up on them, and so has a festival. Decimy's school is doing a cultural festival, and she invites Fudo to join specifically on the last day of the festival, because on that last day they roll out a special prop of sorts called the Kokute Moon. And the Kokute Moon has a legend around it, where if 2 lovers, or 2 people in a couple, sit upon the moon, they will have a strong relationship that will endure through the ages. And while both of them are quite happy with their relationship as it stands, a little supernatural help doesn't hurt. So they resolve to attempt this. But they need to try to do it in a bit of a subtle way, because of course Fudo is, again, a well-known figure. And while he did try to sneak off, it doesn't work, and Gelato Blue joins him. But Fudo is able to sneak away, and Decimy is kind of hounded by Heat Princess, because Heat Princess, being in love with Decimy, wants to do the Kokute Moon with her. But, Decimy decides to flee. It's also shown that Beast Princess is going around stopping couples from being a bit too PDA, and turns out Steel Princess brought her boyfriend, the bear guy, to school as well. But Decimy and Fudo are able to meet in a haunted house, and they're, while they aren't able to really hang out, and he's not able to visit her classroom's cafe, she does give him some food while they're hiding in the haunted house. But Beast Princess comes in and interrupts them, so they have to once again split up and flee to try and figure things out. Pretty much go back to the way that they were before the haunted house, where Decimy's being pursued by Heat Princess, and Fudo has been recaptured by Gelato Blue. But Decimy's able to lose Heat Princess in the nurse's office, as it turns out that the nurse is also a princess. She is Blood Princess. And so she's able to bribe Blood Princess, or the nurse, with one of the figurines that she won, because Blood Princess has a massive crush on the commander. So Blood Princess takes care of Heat Princess, while Decimy goes to find Fudo. And finds Fudo being ridden by Blue Gelato. And Beast Princess shows up and notices Blue Gelato and flees because Blue Gelato in the beach episode found her and was pretty much chasing her around the beach the entire day. Because Blue Gelato is a stereotypical like playboy character. He loves the fame and whatnot because he gets the attention of all the girls. And so that's why he's there, is to, hang out with a bunch of the girls. But once he sees Beast Princess, not knowing, of course, that she is the Beast Princess, he chases her down. But, of course, he ends up getting beaten up by her eventually. But Fudo and Decimi are having a bit of an issue. They're trying to figure out how they can get up to the moon without being recognized. Because, well, he, again, is a very public figure. When they overhear Steel Princess very upset that the person that she, I guess, was hanging out with for at least a small portion of the day was not her bear boyfriend. It was a guy in a bear costume. And she's like, how is anyone supposed to know who's who? And so that's when they get the idea that they should just go up to the moon as their alter egos. Him as Red Gelato and her as Reaper Princess. And they're able to successfully go sit on the moon and have their picture taken. And that's all the episodes. So this is actually one of the ones where the episode's the whole thing, which is nice. And it does kind of end with a discussion between two of the other like monster commanders about romance. Because Steel Princess and the bear guy are a massive open secret, they're discussing like, oh, who would you fall in love with and whatnot. It's like, oh, I wouldn't really fall in love with anyone because X, Y, or Z. So, yeah. And they're like, I guess it's hard for us to fall in love. And they're like, oh, even for Reaper Princess? And they're like, yeah, nah, she wouldn't. Nah. Because of course. Now we get to episode 11, the penultimate episode. What's the point of getting closer? And this one's the weird one, or at least one of the weird ones. It's, again, one of the episodes that's split into two plots, essentially. So plot A is that Reaper Princess, or Decimi, wants to get closer to Judgment Princess. Because Judgment Princess seems to kind of be a bit of a loner. So she wants to learn more about Judgment Princess. So, in a scheme to try and get closer to Judgment Princess, she calls for a princess strategy meeting. Bring your pajamas. And it's literally, it's a sleepover. She wants to just have a slumber party. All of the other princesses, well, all of the, I guess, quote-unquote age-appropriate princesses, so Beast Princess, Steel Princess, Heat Princess, even though Heat Princess keeps her helmet on to maintain her anonymity, Judgment Princess, and then, of course, Reaper Princess are all hanging out. Judgment Princess has the uncanny ability to just transform into someone else, essentially, and they pretty much just sit around, gossip, while hiding their... she's hiding the fact that she's dating Fudo. She gifts Judgment Princess and all the other princesses handmade scarves, which it's something that actually does come up in the next episode, which is nice. But yeah, so handmade scarves, and pretty much just says goodbye as Judgment Princess is sneaking out while everyone else is asleep, because she was planning on leaving much earlier, but actually had fun with, who she can now call her friends. And that's pretty much it for that. The next episode, the next half of the episode's the weird one. So, Gelato 5 is fighting Gecko in the mountains, and Fudo and her are hanging out in like a little igloo thing. They're just talking, but he lets her know that, hey, he finished writing that book he was writing, which I guess he was writing. This is like the first we hear of it, but when we see the book title, it's a callback to the first episode, or the second episode, the date episode. as the book is titled, Which Bug Would Be Stronger If It Was Made Giant? And so he made that into a book. And he wants her to be there for his book signing. And she agrees. But she catches a cold. Because she was in the mountains, in an ice igloo, without any pants on. Because her costume is quite revealing. It's pretty much like a one-piece bathing suit of a costume. But her friends, her non-princess friends, take her to the nurse to try and get her, some medical care. But, is having trouble because the nurse is being a bit weird, being oddly touchy-feely, and part of her excuse is like, she never really gets to care for her. And the nurse is, of course, one of the princesses. She's Blood Princess. But when Beast Princess finds out, she freaks out because, oh no, Blood Princess is a bit of a freak. She has, as Beast Princess states, overbearing maternal instincts. So when she gets someone into her care, she babies them. Literally. And so they rush off to try and save her. But Blood Princess has already read Decimie a story, changed her into a baby's onesie, and a bib. Yeah, a bib, a binky, and has read her a story to sleep. And in her fever-addled mind, she, of course, imagines her mother reading her a story when she was a wee little baby. So Beast Princess and Steel Princess find that they're a little too late. And their whole plan for trying to get close to Blood Princess was to pretend to be sick so that Blood Princess would come in close and then they would attack to try and help free Decimie. But, since they're pretending to be sick, they need to, be put into beds, but there's not enough beds. So she puts them into the special nurse's office. And pretty much does exactly the same thing that she did to Decimie, but to them. Fudo sneaks into the infirmary at night, finds Decimie dressed as a baby, and Decimie asks to have another story read, so he decides to read her his book. And when she wakes up, she freaks out about the fact that she's dressed as a baby, and asks about his book signing. It didn't go very well because no one showed up, so he signs her book, and it's all happy. That's probably the weirdest episode or portion of an episode of the entire season, because it is some really weird, like, fetish stuff, and it was just very awkward to watch. But we now go into the last episode, Eternal Rivals. Gecko has succeeded in their plan. They have gathered enough negative energy to bring forth the ultimate phantom. But before we get to that, Decimie and Fudo are hanging out, and Fudo tells her that, hey, that energy drink commercial that we saw a few episodes ago, when her dad came to visit, it's done really well, and he's been commissioned for another commercial. But this one is a wedding venue commercial, or like a wedding planning commercial. And he is playing the part of a groom. Decimie gets, understandably, a bit, upset about the fact that... Mostly she gets upset about the fact that he will be cutting a cake with an actress who has expressed her interest in Gelato Red. So that's kind of the main thing she's upset about. He doesn't see it until Pink explains to him, imagine her doing the same thing. Have empathy. But basically instructs him to imagine her cutting a wedding cake with a stranger. And he comes to realize that the reason that she's upset is that it would be the first time cutting a cake with someone. And, of course, she wants the first time that he cuts a cake to be with her. Because it's, a thing. But he, royally pisses her off by calling her selfish. Then because he goes too hard into his makeup plan, he kind of accidentally ignores her for 2 days straight. Because the makeup plan that he has is because he tries to get out of the commercial, but he can't because they need the money so that the professor can continue his research to make these ludicrous things for them. The specific thing that he's talking about in this episode is the ability to combine all of their weapons into one massive weapon. And so Fudo must go through with it. But he has a plan. The plan is he will learn to bake a cake. And after that, he will then go to Decimy before he has to shoot the commercial and cut a cake with her first so that he can cut the cake first with her. And so he gets way into it, and doesn't talk to her for 2 days straight. But back to Gecko. They have made their ultimate being. It's a giant pink demon baby thing. And, oops, it's too strong. And it doesn't really take command because it's a wee little baby. And it has the ability to absorb the powers of those it consumes. It consumes the bear guy and gets his massive cannons. Then it absorbs Steel Princess and gets her, sharp, pointy things. And then it fucks off and has completely destroyed their base, so they must rebuild. Meanwhile, Fudo has made a cake and has come to the filming location for the commercial, but he's not able to get a hold of Decimy. So he's about to have to go through with cutting the cake with the actress when he's not able to go through with it. But luckily, at that same moment, the demon baby attacks. So him and Gelato 5 suit up to fight the baby and get their asses beat. And just in time, the other princesses show up, and I actually got the order of Steel Princess being nommed on wrong. She gets nommed on here at the wedding venue. So he absorbs Steel Princess, then he eats cake and becomes cake. And so the other princesses and all of the Gelato members are taken out. So Decimy comes in to help Fudo wield the giant cleaver, and they cut the cake. So yeah, it's pretty much a long way for them to get to. They're able to cut the cake together. It just so happens to be a giant pink demon baby cake. But they're hanging out. The demon baby is now tiny and sees Fudo and Decimy as its parents. So that's cute. And this entire event that happened was broadcast as it's like, oh, well, maybe Reaper Princess and Gelato Red now have a friendship, but she beats the shit out of Fudo out of panic, and so it's still an eternal rivalry. And so the episode ends, and so does the season. Sadly, that's probably it. It seems like it's probably not going to get a second season, which is a bit of a shame, but these things happen. It's from what I was able to read, the manga itself was actually canceled shortly after the anime was announced. And so they had to kind of rush to finish and actually wrap up the manga, the storyline. And from the looks of it, I haven't been able to read it, so I can't fully state. But from the looks of it, they basically, Fudo ends up joining the bad guys because they end up dominating the world because it's love after world domination, even though they fall in love before the world domination. That's why in the run-up to doing this episode, I kept calling it the wrong thing. In fact, I had typed up in the like template thing for the episode, Love Before World Domination. And and even on my like schedule, I put Love Before WD, which is wrong. It's just wrong. It's Love After. But yeah, so they end up together. Green and Yellow end up together, and like they open a restaurant. And I guess they retire from gelato because gelato is nothing. Then Pink is drawing comics, and then Reaper Princess and Gelato Red are now co-villains. I don't know. It's silly, but at least it does technically have a proper ending. It's just from what I've been able to read, they had to rush the ending because the series got canceled. So as they were building up a plot line, they had to immediately turn left and end the story. So, these things happen. But with that is it. As for next week, I currently don't know what is coming up next week. I still haven't filled that gap. So, next week, it could be potentially one of two things. It will either be a classic book double feature, or it will be a recent movie. I will probably end up recording both episodes regardless, and it's probably going to be the recent movie. So, look forward to that. The classic book double feature will then follow, not the following week, as it's actually going to be back-to-back recent movies. It will be on the 8th if I do the classic book double feature. But with that, I would like to remind you all that I'm doing a challenge currently. That challenge is happening over on RPG Hangout. It is audio only and available wherever you listen to podcasts, save for probably YouTube, because YouTube doesn't have an RSS feed feature yet. So that's, yeah. Anywho. So, feel free to check that out. I am still playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at the moment, and I am making decent, if slightly slow, progress. With that said, though, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys liked this and you're listening on YouTube, feel free to give it a like, comment, subscribe, share it. You know, all that good stuff. If you're listening to it on any podcast catcher of your choice, feel free to rate and review it and share it with your friends. Help spread the love. But once again, with that said, thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.